Resolution 2004. If you are not here for that, you're in the wrong meeting. I'm Representative Lundgren. With me, I have Representative Zapner and Representative Dunwell. If you'd like to speak on behalf of Convention Estates in this resolution, please come up to the table. You can do so. When you're done, step away, which means we can fill all the seats, but when you're done speaking, go ahead and step away. We'll just give you just a few minutes to speak, just because we do have a lot of people in the room. If you've already heard it, you can just agree that you are in favor or opposed to it, so we can kind of keep the ball rolling. Funnel week is next week. We've got a lot of subcommittees happening, and so I think my colleagues have to get on to their next meeting. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started, and I will save any comments for the end for myself and my colleagues. If you'd like to speak, again, come to the table right now. When you're done, go ahead and move away.
I'm Karen Schuster. I live in Ankeny, Iowa, and I'm here today to testify in support of HJR 2004. Iowans are deeply concerned. For years, we've watched our freedoms erode and the national debt explode. George Mason warned that Congress would never propose the amendments to restrain its own power. That's why the framers gave us an answer in Article 5. When Congress fails to limit the power of the federal government, the states must act. This is not dangerous. It is the Constitution's own safety valve, a check and balance designed precisely for these circumstances. Over 60,000 Iowans have petitioned their legislators to pass this resolution. Polls show strong bipartisan support for the Convention of States. 20 states have already passed matching resolutions, building the momentum toward the required 34 applications. You've heard the objections: fear of a runaway convention, lack of rules, or rewriting the Constitution, but both history and the Constitution refute these fears. Ample historical precedents show us how conventions of the states work. State legislators choose the commissioners, states cast one vote each, and applications limit the subject matter. The Constitution authorizes a convention which only proposes amendments. Any proposal requires ratification by 38 states. 13 states can block any unacceptable idea by simply taking no action. The founders built this tool into the Constitution because they knew this day would come. They would surely be disappointed that we've waited so long to use it. The path is clear, the precedents are strong. The people of Iowa are waiting. Honor their petitions, join the growing number of states already acting. I ask you to do your part in restoring the republic our founders entrusted to us. Pass HJR 2004 today. Thank you.
The little person.
Good morning. Good afternoon, committee members. I'm Sebastian. I live in Des Moines. I am speaking in favor of HJR 2004 because this is the only solution that I'm aware of that gives the citizens a voice and encourages them to be involved in their state government, because they feel like their voice will actually be heard, and the bureaucrats in DC, they can return their voice to the states, in the sense of the people in DC shouldn't be the ones making the decisions for the state of Iowa. It should be the citizens of Iowa, regardless of what the policy is. And the Convention of States gives us the opportunity to work with our legislatures over a period of time in order to help address these abuses that we see coming from DC, and allow us to be Iowa and allow every state to have their own voice and embrace their own values, embrace their own policies, without us sitting on our seats every June waiting for what the Supreme Court is going to decide on any particular issue that drives the nation one way or the other. So that's one of the reasons why I'm in favor of HJR 2004. Thank you.
I'm John Strathman. I'm a lobbyist for Valor, Iowa, and we have declared against this resolution. If I may, I have some information I'd like to pass to the three representatives on the committee. Thank you. So I've been, as I said, Valor has registered against this resolution. But I'm going to be more narrowly focused in my comments, talking about one of the reasons why the resolution is being cited as a need is term limits. I've been tracking turnover and incumbents in both the Iowa House, or the Iowa General Legislature, and the U.S. Congress. At the top of that table, you see the actual number of incumbents replaced each year in a non-election year. In the center, you see the number of incumbents replaced during an election year. I'm going to ask you to just focus on the bottom where it has the summary, the total change. So for example, in the Iowa House with 100 seats, you'll see there have been 124 representatives replaced in the last 10 years out of 100 seats. In the Iowa Senate with 50 seats, 54 have been replaced. In the U.S. House with 435 voting members, 402 have been replaced in the last 10 years. And in the U.S. Senate, and I'd also point out in the U.S. Senate, by design in our Constitution, they serve a 6-year term, and 55 have been replaced. But by design, it takes longer to replace them. So I'd like to, when you look down there, it says percent still there. So I'll just focus on the Congress. 34% of House members are still serving after 10 years, and 55% of the Senate. The U.S. Congressional Research Service issued a report that predates my data. It was dated November 20 of 2020. And what the Congressional Research Service found in the House, 71% of the House members had served less than 12 years. 60% had served less than 8 years, and 42% had served less than 6 years. In the Senate, 41% had served more than 12 years. The next piece of paper I'd ask you to look at is this one. And this is just...
We are at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, so we have to wrap up.
Okay, well, thank you. That last piece just, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jim Walker from Colo. I want to start by defining some terms. There are 2 terms that get thrown around about these conventions. One is that it's a constitutional convention. The other is that it's an amendment convention. The definition of those terms, a constitutional convention is a convention called for the purpose of writing a new constitution. There is no authority in our Constitution to do that. That would be a last resort after the failure of the country. It's not authorized by the Constitution. What we're asking for here is a convention to propose amendments. That is the exact language out of Article 5. There is no authority to replace the Constitution, as some will claim. They'll also claim that we've had founders and Supreme Court justices that have spoken against this process. Can you name any legislation that passes through any court or any room that doesn't have someone speak against it? I can. The convention process in Article 5. In 1787, when this was being proposed, nobody opposed it. It was voted in unanimously. It's the only thing in the Constitution that was unanimously accepted. They understood that there had to be a balance. Congress had the ability to propose amendments. The state should have the ability to propose amendments, and that's all they can do is propose. What comes out of that convention still has to be ratified by 3/4 of the states. I use the example of a convention for water rights to a river. You invite the states that border that river, have something to do with that river. They will decide on the rules for that convention, which will be something along the lines of Robert's Rules of Order or something to that effect. If somebody in that convention proposed, hey, I think we should introduce a new constitution, they'd be laughed out of the room because it's not part of that, the scope of that convention. It can't happen. All right. I support this. I'd like you to pass it, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deb Davis. I'm from Johnson, Iowa, and I'm here speaking on behalf of Concerned Women for America. First of all, I'd like to thank you for each of you for the service that you give to the state. I know there's a lot of hours you put in that no one ever sees, so thank you. I'm against this resolution, HJR 2004, and I'm just going to start with some quotes about the conventions. James Madison on November 2nd, 1788, This is what he said. Having witnessed the difficulties and dangers experienced by the first convention, I should tremble for the result of a second. The most violent partisans, individuals of insidious views, would strive to be delegates and would have a dangerous opportunity of snapping the very foundations of the fabric of our country. Former Supreme Court Justice Arthur Goldberg, 1986, said, "There is no enforceable mechanism to prevent a convention from reporting out wholesale changes to our Constitution and Bill of Rights." Former U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice Warren Burger, 1988, "A new convention could plunge our nation into constitutional confusion and confrontation at every turn." Late Justice Antonin Scalia stated in 2015, "A constitutional convention is a horrible idea." Today would be a risky time to proceed forward with a constitutional convention due to fierce national division, outspoken interest groups, protesters, and media frenzy. And here's some questions I have. Who would select delegates? And would they represent your views? Who would Iowa send? The ones for or against private property rights? Who would Minnesota send? Would delegates be appointed by one state, one vote, or according to the Electoral College model, giving some states very few delegates? It's my understanding that once delegates are selected, they can set their own rules or propose.
That's 2 minutes, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you.
Next.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Nathan Hayes. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. In my lifetime, I've watched the federal government run amok, run rampant, run rights. In my lifetime, the federal government has only passed a budget 4 times. Regrettably, the Democrats have done a better job nationally at passing a budget than the Republicans in my lifetime. Over 80% of people in the country believe there should be term limits. No one should be sitting in Congress or the Senate for 50 years. Chuck Grassley, between his term in the Iowa legislature and the federal legislature, has been in one political position or another since 1958, when Eisenhower was the president. And then finally, when you talk about the scope of the government, there are currently 440 federal agencies in the United States government, almost 10 million employees for the United States federal government. The federal government is the largest employer in the country. The federal government squanders and wastes more money than you can shake a stick at. I spent almost 30 years in service to the federal government in uniform at various echelons and degrees. And my personal experiences in watching the federal government flush my money down the toilet as a taxpayer has been absolutely atrocious. I support this resolution 2004, and I ask you to please do the same and move it to committee. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lauren Gideon. I am a registered lobbyist, but in this meeting I will be speaking on just behalf of myself. I live in Indianola. I am urging you to oppose the amendment. One thing I just would like to point out is that in Article 5, there's 143 words total. 90 of those words are in the first paragraph that pertains to actually amending the Constitution. So as far as copious rules and regulations for how a constitutional or a convention to amend the Constitution would happen, I find the Constitution giving very, very minimal instructions for how that's going to be done. The thing that I would like to talk about today specifically is the representation component. Either way, we have representation to propose amendments to the Constitution. Article 5 convention assumes we would have ideal representation. To me, the math just doesn't check. If ideal representation is achievable, it should be achievable now. Congress is nothing more than our representation that we've chosen, and so representation to a convention will be the same as representation. If it were achievable, Congress would already be filled with ideal representation. If Congress were ideally representative, constitutional amendments could be passed the same way all previous amendments have been passed. So either ideal representation is achievable and a convention is unnecessary, or it isn't and a convention doesn't solve that problem. I urge you to oppose this bill. Thank you.
I'm Paul Dexter, and I'm speaking as a private citizen. I'm a retired farmer, been involved in politics for a number of years. And the one thing I think we can probably all agree on here is that we all want a better America. It's how do we get there? And since it seems that there are many in favor of changing up the Constitution for multiple reasons. I haven't heard of any number of states that come in there for the same reason, but term limits, balanced budget, Hawaii Second Amendment, they want to do away with it. There's just a number of things. The danger that I see in it is that we don't have the caliber of people in our nation that we had at one time. I wouldn't be afraid of having a convention with everybody that's in this room. You know, we're kind of Iowa nice, and we do those things together, and we can work out things. But in a nation that can't decide when life begins, they can't decide, even in Iowa here, we can't decide with eminent domain, how it pertains to things. We want to overrun our own Constitution. So what makes anybody think that a new Constitution or new amendments, that who we elect is going to follow? There's no teeth in anything. We've seen the books in the libraries go back to pornography, even though the rules were passed in our Senate and House, because there's no enforcement. If people aren't willing to follow rules, it doesn't matter what you put down in the books. Those code books are pages and pages and pages. And you can add more pages to them. It doesn't matter unless people. The greatest threat in the world, God gave us. He gave us the 10 Commandments to follow. The wages of sin are death. What do? We keep sinning. We don't follow 10 Commandments. What makes anybody naive enough to think they'll follow anything new in the Constitution? Let's get back to following the Constitution. Thank you.
I'm Pam Mackey Taylor. I represent Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club. We oppose this legislation. Our politics have become extremely divisive, and an Article 5 convention leads us on the path of an even more divisive society. A rogue convention is a great threat to our democracy, to our freedoms, and to the respect for our society. Even though these bills attempt to control the issues the delegates can consider at a convention, we urge no vote on this. Thank you.
Representative Zapner?
Can you take another pro?
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, we got just, yeah, we have.
Hi, my name's Peter Sand. I'm from Riverdale, Iowa. I speak in favor, firm favor of the passage of this proposal. You hear a lot of people who oppose a state-directed convention worried about how this is going to wreck our Constitution. This is part of our Constitution. It's one part of our Constitution that we have not been doing. And maybe that's why this country is so out of whack. So don't listen to people who say this is going to wreck our Constitution when the people who favor this are favoring the use of the tools in our Constitution. This nation has gone far beyond spending the money of our grandchildren. We are now spending the money of our great-grandchildren so we can live higher than we can afford to live. It is the most immoral thing I can imagine, the way we are enslaving future generations with our debt. What is the answer to that? Elect the right people. How's that been going for us? Congresses of both parties are ruining this country. It is up to the states to get this under control. And this is the tool we've been given. Pass this resolution. Thanks.
Representative Zapner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate everyone that came out to comment. This is always an interesting conversation every year. My concern with this resolution is that Social Security relies on the Social Security Trust Fund. I know there are over 600,000 people in Iowa counting on their Social Security check every year. Balanced budget amendment would take that away, and I think that's wrong. I think they've earned those benefits. I will be a no.
Respectfully, I'm going to disagree with that, but I will just, my comments are going to be strictly in favor of the bill. I know we've gotten a lot of public comments that we've all received here, most of them in favor of the bill. I will tell you, as a former congressional candidate, I have seen firsthand how out of control our federal government is. I have never been as strong of supporter as I am today of Convention of States because of that reason. So I am very happy to sign off on this today, and Representative Dunwell has also agreed to sign off on this today. For those of you that have concerns about who our delegates are, we will also have a bill that specifically decides how we are going to choose our delegates. We did that as an amendment last year, not as an amendment, as a standalone bill last year. We will do that the same to put those guardrails around who is going and whether or not we can recall a delegate if they decide to go off the rails and not do what we've asked them to do through this Convention of States bill that we're passing today, or the resolution. So with that, we are going to go ahead and move that back to committee, and stay tuned. Thank you.